Hey gamers, welcome back to Fire Chicken Review. Just want to let you know right off the bat, this is going to be a feedback session for Andromeda's Edge. If you want my actual initial thoughts and whether you should consider backing the Game Found campaign and now consider potentially late pledging for it, you can check out my other video, which I will link. And just going into the spoiler territory for that aspect is that I am very fond of the game. I did end up backing it at the all-in pledge level. I do consider it a good bang for your buck. And my own preference is that I prefer this game over Dwellings. But I think there's room for both. So that's just like a quick recap of that. Getting into this, this is going to be mostly for those that are interested in providing their own feedback notes, and of course, I should say, Cardboard Alchemy's team, so that I'm doing a chat feedback instead of typing it. Because if you want to provide your own feedback, you can comment in my video what you think or with what you agree or disagree on, or you can go to Cardboard Alchemy's Discord page, and they actually have feedback sessions. So the other item I want to cover quickly here is that this is based off of me playing the game about a dozen times. My win record, just for to put that out there because I play a lot of games, is that I've only lost 2 games. So like I have an over an 80% win aspect, but I'm only bringing that up early because some of the mechanics and why I think I'm capable of winning. Based off of a few things, I just want to clear up some of that stuff, and where I think you can make the where Cardboard Alchemy can make the game a little bit tighter and whatnot. All of that being said, this is just some of my own bias feedback for it, so you can take that with a grain of salt. And even with its current state, if nothing changed and I only got this, not for the pledge level that I backed at, but if I thought that this was like you went and you got the retail version, in its current state, I actually think the game is fairly polished and quite nice, and I would already want to add it to my collection. That's just to say that I'm a fairly big fan person of this game. So as you can see on my tabletop that I have here, I have things split up. So let's dive into it. I don't have any rhyme or reason for things, but the first thing, uh, except for a few items, the first thing I did want to go over is that I wanted to go over the different factions. So I listed the factions over to the sides here, and of course, being a reviewer, I have things based off of a tier list from S to B because I think most of them are quite playable. So I know I've talked to Peter from Cardboard Alchemy about my the top faction out of the 8 that you can play in the TTS demo, of course, is the shipwrights here, and this is their 2 abilities, and I'm going to assume that you've played this, and I'm mostly talking about why or why not I think some of the abilities are strong or weak. So with the shipwrights, right off the bat, I find the embark ability is fairly strong. It's can be very powerful. Just basically, you're being able to build a ship so that if you build that ship and you can combo that in with the following turn, you're going to be recalling that ship, or if you build it deal when you do your recall phase, that's a strong combo. But the actual thing, that's not like a crazy thing. The actual thing that makes this the highest one for me, and I think can be fairly devastating to other players, depending on what's out on the board, is the spacefaring culture. And that's because getting a ship upgrade allows you to get 1 civilization mod for free. So you gain the ship upgrade, so that means that you went up on the brown track, and they want to go up on the brown and blue. And when I say brown and blue, I'm referring to the industry and the civilization. So you go up on this track, and then you get one of these things here, one of the civ mods, which means that you also get a point up here. You're like, okay, that's fine. So getting a ship upgrade automatically gives you 1 point, and then you're going to get one of these mods. And most of the mods, when you review them, the reason why I think it's so strong is that most of them, like if you look at them here, about, well, I shouldn't say most, about half of them in the demo at least are victory points. So even if you're not going to do the pluses here, 3 victory points. So you're saying that when you get a ship upgrade, you get 4 victory points just right off the bat without having to pay the resources here. So my feedback for that is that potentially potentially what I would look at here, I guess, is that I think there should be some sort of cost, even if it's just 1 ice. It would make this a little bit more refined. When you gain a ship upgrade, you may pay 1 ice to gain 1 civilization mod, so that at least that there's a cost associated with it. Um, because being able to grab any of these 3 is very strong. Or alternatively, my other recommendation would be that you get the top Civ mod, so you don't know what the Civ mod's going to be. And then maybe some people can sound off in the comments if they think that's too weak. But the ability to just get that ship upgrade and basically get the best of one of 3 Civ mods is very strong because it's going to give you at least 4 points. And then what it also combos with is that I consider the Civ mod of all the tracks here the absolute best track in my opinion, and is helped me win multiple games. So when you combo all that together, where they're already up on the blue and the Civ and the industry track to start off in the game, I think that is a very strong combo. And it actually has very little to do with the special upgraded card that they get. I think that this card is fine. So that's my reason why this is so up there. And I can confirm that in the games and from talking to other players, they found that the shipwrights didn't feel right. They felt too strong. And the reason why I recommending that it potentially gets reviewed again is that I think a lot of people are going to have issues with this and like, we all played well, but this one just felt slightly too strong, which is not a game breaking at the end of the day. Because if it was me, with how strong this ability is, I might consider house ruling that you can't play with this faction, which is a feels bad moment. I do this for some games, not too much, but like there's a builder in Lords of Waterdeep that says for like each building you have, you get victory points, which I think isn't as strong as other stuff. But that's going to the side saying it just means that I think that. Yeah, I just think that this is quite strong. Outside of a new player using this faction, I think those that have played a few times are going to have a higher win rate. Sound off in the comments what you think, but that's why it's out of all of the other ones that you could play, and I have played all the factions. I think that one's a little bit too strong, and I understand how it became stronger, and the designers can comment in my video, is because originally its ability was considered a little bit weaker from other players, and I think from talking to Peter as well, they were saying that the ability needed to be ramped up, but it just seems a little bit too strong now. Okay, so that's this one. The other ones I won't go into as depth because I think for the most part they're all pretty good. So the Nebula and Cloud people. The reason why this is my second is that you just get so many options. It's really good. I don't think there's anything wrong with this. I think it's a very good faction. But when you launch, so this is dependent if you have a good planets in aligned spaces that you can go to next to nebulas. And if you end up getting, for example, um, if you end up getting these next to the nebula, oh, that's just going to be solid gold, because that means you're going to get the resources when you go there. And the designers have to comment. I don't know if you can go to the spot if you don't have any resources. I believe you can't, which is a good question. So, like, if you go there, you would technically get the resource, but I think you need the resource like at least one resource. Like you would need one nanocarbon or one titanium to go here. So if you had neither, I don't think you can technically go there, but that's just a random question. Um, but any case, the whole point is that they can really be an S tier if they have a good things that they want to go to up here. So if the line spaces, the field, or either of the fields are here, that's really going to ramp them up. Or if they have the trade hub, that can be useful. Or if they have basically the green or blue, because they get these resources, if those are up there, that's going to be good because they're going to probably want to build up there. So that ability is fairly strong. It's dependent on if it's close to the nebula. And since you're drafting and choosing what faction you're going to start off with, yeah, you're going to pick that if that's the case because it's really useful. And it combos really well if you upgrade their ship that have voyage. Having your transports having voyage and be able to manipulate the vents, very strong. So that's really cool. Uh, and the other main ability, the drift ability, that is a very excellent ability, especially when you're talking about uh, turning your transports into development. And because you can move and surprise people, you can go place your guy on the development, move your transports to the spot, and you can also pick up, currently from my understanding of the rules, you can pick up your leaders on both the locations because free actions can be done basically anytime on your turn. So you can pick up the leader if there's still like a leader on one spot, and then pick up the leader on the new spot that you moved your guys. So they're really excellent at picking up leaders, and since you can drift and move people around, it means that on like your third fourth turn potentially, if you're still placing out workers, that means that you really can move around the map easier. So that's why it's an S tier. These four here, as far as feedbacks for the factions, I think these are fairly balanced-ish. Some people will probably disagree, but these four to me all feel like I'd be happy getting all these. And to be honest, except for the last one, which I'm still fine playing with, I'd be happy, of course, with the top seven. So the balancing, even with all that being said, it's still a lot of fun playing any of these factions. Like they're just, I enjoy the game, right? Uh, the spores, yeah, I think their ability triggers really easily because in a 3 to 4 player game, there's probably going to be something in the scrapyard. And remember that the repair barge is in the scrapyard as well. So I know some players have been asking about this, but the repair barge, this is all of the scrapyard. That's why it has this, and it's just showing that line. So this is basically, some might argue, uh, even stronger in some ways. You don't have the drift. I would argue against it, but there's most likely going to always be ships in the scrapyard. So you're just always getting nanocarbons. The reason why it's not stronger, in my opinion, is that you get the choice of which resources appear, and additionally. I've seen in multiple games, actually people max out the amount of nanocarbons. So they're like, oh, another nanocarbon, which sounds like a first world problem. But yes, people have maxed out on the nanocarbons, and the growth ability is really cool. I find that their card is interesting. So their upgrade transport is can be very toxic indeed, because hey, they might lose the battle, but they're going to take down everyone with them. Very good faction. And I should also mention uh, when I said I played the game, I have won with each faction, and I know that like the synth board when I played with them, people were surprised, like, "Wow, you won with that faction." And I've also at the same time have played some of these factions not going their natural route. So there is, uh, even though every faction's asymmetric, and these are like it gives you like basically suggested paths you can go. I do like the fact that you don't have to follow that. You can choose your own way, and it works well. The Dark Star Acolytes here, they're the only ones from the core, from the TTS mod at least, that has one. From my understanding, talking to some of the people, they were saying that it's because it's so strong. So some people that said they did play tests and whatnot, they said, "Wow, this is such a strong ability." And this ability actually here, I think this, depending on the player count, in a solo player, like if I'm playing just against Unity, which I have played all like 3 levels. I haven't played against all the Unities, but I have all played all 3 levels. I found that where am I going with? This is really powerful. If you can thin down the amount of workers that you have, so that you only have, like, say, 3 units left, 2 units would be ideal. This really pops off because it's giving you like a free placement action during your recall, right? Like when you recall all your ships. Um, yeah, you can then I say recall, but I mean regroup. So when you do the regroup, you get to do this ability. So I think in the solo 2-player game, this is really good. In the 3 to 4, it starts to go down. So that's why I rated it an A. Only because the line spaces are going to be more taken up in the higher player count, which only makes sense, right? Love the ability. The ship is also fairly cool. The porters, I don't have too much to say outside that. The ability is fun. I think it works well. It gives, if you don't want to go on like a war path aspect and you want to more of building mods and whatnot, to be able to use its abilities, kind of cool. Um, I'll get more on to spending credits uh, in a bit for something else because I was just looking at this. But yeah, the ability is really cool. This is actually one of the factions I chose not to buy mods at one of the games, and I actually went up the supremacy track, which is going against the opposite of this, and I still ended up winning. But it was just what was on the board. I ended up picking a few fights, and some people were picking fights with me, of course. So that one's interesting. The refugees, I think some people, when they originally look at this, think it's overpowered. I think it's actually fairly strong, but it's like, hey, whether I win or lose, it's just a fun faction to play because they're going into battles all the time. They're like, yeah, they're going to throw their units in. And I know the designers and Peter from Cardboard Alchemy were discussing about the player board, whether the repair, when you lose a battle, if the repair action, if you place a repair moon here, if that's going to allow you to repair the ship that you just lost, or one of the ships that you just lost or not. I know that's being debated at the moment. Hopefully it does change. It will make this faction a bit stronger if people choose to put this moon here, but I don't think it's like the end of the world. I'm happy either way. Yeah, so that's a fun one. I think their ship is also very strong. I didn't talk about the Porter ship, which I should talk about. This one I love. It really goes with the Porters. I'm a big fan of that. It's unfortunate that they lose their shield, but their ability is strong, so I accept that. The Warmongers. Okay, the Warmongers I find are just okay. I don't use their abilities as much. I find getting into battles. Combat is fine, but their ability just basically says, like, if I was to reword it, it says, um, roll 2 additional dice in all battles. Let's be real here, because what's going to end up happening, I find, if you're playing more advanced, is that you're usually just going to use that energy right away, and that energy is useful. It's going to say because either you want to go into battles and like have no energy and use both, or you go into the battles to net gain 1 energy. If you think you're already going to win, or if you're already at max dice, you're net gaining 1 energy. And energy is probably one of the weakest, if not the weakest resource in my opinion, though it has its uses for regrouping. It's very strong for regrouping. Outside of that, it's not going to help you too much unless you're going for like using it for like any resource when you're buying mods and stuff like that. So it's a battle rage is okay, and its no quarters is very situational because you need to have a because you can only do it on your turn, and you need to have a diplomacy card. So there's like, I think maybe 20% of the deck is diplomacy. There's a chance that you don't have a diplomacy card, so this might not trigger. So they're trying to go through, but it is a nice ability if you have a bunch of diplomacy cards because you can only play one at a time. So it's a situational ability. So that's why it's an A minus. Perfectly fine faction. Um, Supremacy, going up the supremacy track at the start and going up the industry track is okay. And I'll talk a bit more about that here in a bit. And then my the one that I rated the lowest here is the Synthborn. And the reason for this one, it's again because I consider personally as a bias, energy being the weakest resource. So each time one of your ships goes into the scrapyard, gain a energy. Maybe if this said each time one of your ships goes in, I don't know. It just feels slightly weak. Uh, and this one is the Terminator. Like I almost feel that I wish that they had the profit. I think maybe they would be too strong. Um, you can activate all your mods. Like it would be super cool though. And I'm sure players would agree, but maybe too strong if they had the profit. Um, because a profit allows you to use all your ships in the scrapyards because then it incentivize having ships go into your scrap yards a little bit more often. But I guess their main draw here, and I did use it when I played the games, is freely exchanging titanium for energy, and that can be useful. And so that actually changes energy into a decently nice resource. I think the Terminator is a situational thing. Regaining your Terminator is nice in ways. Um, but at the same time, it's stalling you because if you're spending turns to like just getting into combats, especially if other people are winning and going up the supremacy track, gaining that additional resource, um, it's only okay because now you're spending times doing this versus where you can build your engine or regroup and etc. So, but you are getting chances to collect more moons, go to more spots. So it's a give and take. But that's why it's a B tier for me. Let me know in the comments what you think, where you would rate this at. The next thing I want to rate, and not everything's going to be rating, I'm going to be talking about cards and some issues as well, but I just want to go over some of the stuff, is that for developments, this is basically from best development down to the worst development cards for various reasons. If I'm going to develop, I think cities, as I said, that I think the Civ track is already the best track. I think cities are rightfully so the top development that players should be considering looking at. And that's also why they cost the most. So when you look at the planets here, I actually lined them all up, is that they normally cost 3 liters and 4 ice, and each planet actually has a variable one, which is these ones, and I'll talk a little bit more here where it costs slightly different, except for supremacy for some reason is all the same. But yeah, so normally costs 4 ice, might cost 3 with 3 liters, and I think this is absolutely how much it should cost because this ability says, hey, I build my development, I get to go up on this track, which I already think is very strong. Uh, and now I'm going to get victory points. Plus, I can flip it to get any mod of my choice that is shown here. Yeah, if you didn't already hear what I was saying earlier, I think that getting mods is like being able to pull. That's why I think shipped rights is the strongest. Being able to get a mod, obviously on your turn, and flipping this over is super strong because you can add something that you don't have the resources for. So you're basically saving those resources. You don't have to go to the align space to pick up that mod, and then you'll go up a track again. So that's obviously why these cost so many liters because the ability is very strong. I think this track is strong, and so to me that's why this one's rated the highest. I think the ability is perfectly fine because these do cost quite a bit. I want to go on about building observatories. Observatories, um, this is on my second here because I think going up this track is already very important, and it's very inexpensive. Like this one, I don't want to raise it because I love the green, but like wow, it only costs 1 liter and two nanocarbons. Unless this one here, for some reason, one is like the opposite where it costs more. Um, but it basically allows you to get one of those tokens, right? So if you look at the tokens, I can't remember where I placed them here. Oh, they're over here. So you get an option of one of these tokens when you make an observatory, um, which is going to be actually, I say one of them, but it's actually going to be up over here. If you look on the player board, there's going to be a stack of 5. So there's going to be randomly selected 5 of these. That's going to be here. And there's 2 more. There's going to be a 5 here and a 5 here. And but a lot of these basically say, hey, gain a bunch of victory points or get situational things. So I do like the options, and this is why it's my second one that I'm happy to develop because a lot of these are fairly strong, and I might as well cover these now. Is that I guess my feedback on the ones that you can use here. And this is called what is this pile called again? I think I can't remember off the top of my head. But from these, um, it adds randomness, but sometimes it's just kind of quirky where this one says, hey, gain a mod and go up on the industrial track. And this one says, just go up on the industrial track. And there's one like this for each of the tracks. It's just to add randomness, but clearly players 98% of the time, unless all the mods are damaged, are going to pick that one, right? Um, but yeah, I really love the options. I think the options that you can select from are very nice. And yeah, so that's the observatory, and that's why I think it's here. Uh, Factory, straightforward. It's because being able to repair on your turn, especially if you got ships that are you need to put into the repair barge or you're about to score. I think that's very useful. Spate, Sport, and Obelisk. The first 3, I think, building these are great. This one here and this one, I have not issues, but it's not. I'm not as happy with these 2. So the spaceport here, the issue I have is that I think it costs too much to make a spaceport. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I think that most players are not happy to develop. When I say not happy, I should take that back. Most players strategically don't want to build spaceports, even if they're like the Porters or one of the other factions. I think the Porters, the refugees, but any of the factions, like going up this track is nice and all. But credits are super useful. They're the wild resource, right? They can be used as titanium, nanocarbons, or ice. So to spend 3 wild resources and 2 leaders to get an ability that just says, hey, trade any 2, including cards, which people often forget, for 3, is very mediocre feeling. So nothing about it feels great because going up on the commerce track only feels okay until you get to basically the vault levels. So it just feels very mediocre and it feels like a very high cost. You're still going to do it, don't get me wrong. That's why I love this game. If there's a bunch of leaders around and you can score like anywhere from like 6 to 10 points, because say there's like a bunch of leaders and you want someone else not to get it, you're going to want to build a spaceport. And the ability is still, like once you get later on, depending on the factions, to trade, say, 2 energy for 3 credits. Okay, it can pay for itself, but the ability is not the main issue. The main issue is that developing, it feels really rough to develop, I should say, on the yellow because you have to use credits. So I think if you were to look at stats, probably these ones are going to be the least developed. And so much so that like I think that these ones would be developed more than these because of the abilities that you gain. But that's just my own opinion. And then finally, the obelisk. I think everything about developing obelisk is just feels weak. And I know I'm critiquing and sounding very harsh with it. That's just my own bias of views. Again, the game is fantastic, but my view is that the obelisk, um, you have to pay one of everything. It's only one leader, and you're going to go up on this track. I rather not. I'd rather just not spend these resources. I'm going to be frank. Even if I'm battle hungry, unless I'm all the way up here, and this is going to be worth like 10 points, um, you're building the obelisk normally because maybe you got the mod that says, hey, you get points for having the obelisk. So there is a variability. So you have this one here. So if you have that mod, then that would be nice. Or if there's a bunch of leaders, but like what I guess I'm getting at is this for like raw planets to build mods on. Gaining this, costing you one of each resource. So this is costing you again 4 resources. So this one costs you four, can cost you up to 3, but this is the most powerful one. This only costs you 2. This one only costs you normally 2. This one costs you again. Don't want to talk about this one too much because it's costing you 3 wild. But before I would build this, I'd rather build one of these 3 for sure. Or I might want to save it to build this because going up on the vault, even though I know what I said, because its ability is also not the strongest. Because my bias view is that gaining 4 energy uh, could be situational. Again, though, if you don't have a high like engine, like when I say engine, like if you don't have a primary reactor where you're getting a bunch of energy, this might be of use. But out of all my games I've played so far, I found that this was mostly used at the end of the game because you were up on the vault and you're flipping it to get 4 energy, or during a regroup, which of course makes sense. Um, you're using it because you don't have enough energy and you're gaining more energy to place outwards. But let me know in the comments what you think for that. Moving on, I want to talk about tactics cards. So I've pulled out a few tactics cards that I think potentially are troublesome. And overall, my thoughts about tactics cards. Tactics cards overall are awesome. Some of the issues I have with tactics cards, though, is that when I place a worker out, you can have a turn where someone places a worker out and they go, hey, I place a worker out on this. There's no more moons. I just get 1 credit. Or there was a moon. I get whatever. That's their complete turn. And then you could have another player that when they're playing, they say, hey, I am playing the shipwrights again, just hound in on this. I go to the Maximus Fields. I buy some industrial mods. So they buy some industry mods. Boom, I go up, I gain an upgrade, then I get one of these, and I was already here. I have no cards in my hand, and now I draw up to 6 cards. And tactics cards can be like doing this, and I've done it in the games. Doing this, it's how the game's supposed to be played as well, but it can have some feels bad moments where a player just gains a moon or gains a resource, and your turn could be about 5 times longer than their turn because there's a lot of things that you gotta consider. And one of the reasons why that is that if you look at these tactics cards I pulled out, assume command. Um, I think Assume Command's a very strong one. And if I recall, at least in this mod, there's 2 Assume Command cards. I love this card, but it's very strong. Um, Same with Stealth Maneuver. It's a very, very strong card. It allows you to, basically what I'm getting at is that going up on this Civ mod track, if you go up to here in draw 6, go up to here, draw 7, oof, that's very strong. I'm almost curious if I wonder if maybe this should change. This is probably too late in the game to change this, but I'm wondering if it should allow your hand size to be this, but you only draw, even if your hand size, if you're already at hand size, maybe you draw 2 or 3 tactics cards, because drawing, if I draw 6 tactics cards because my hand's empty, obviously I would have had to play tactics cards, figure out ways to get rid of them by using them as resources. But usually I will strategically plan to have an empty hand or close to empty here. And a lot of these cards are very powerful. Um, Assume command, stealth maneuver, like I said, and also anything that has like the caution symbol that advances the time track. Because allowing you to do this, you can literally go to the spot with the shipwrights, go here, buy one of the industry mods, get a Civ mod, which is worth victory points, go up and combo it so that you draw to a full hand size. And then if the time track is say is here, maybe you drew like 3 or 4 of these. You could actually manipulate by playing those if you're able to play them all and they're useful. And you can manipulate it so that now the track hits the event, and potentially you've played a card which lets you look at the top 2 event cards, because there is cards like that. So as I'm getting long-winded into it, it can make into a very long turn. Very fun. I very much enjoy it. But I guess my feedback here is that I wonder if there's room to consider, or maybe a game variant where there's a maximum amount of tactics cards you can play on the turn. Because the turns can get very long. I'm enjoying it, but I'm not sure if other players, when they only just grabbed a moon or just grabbed a credit or a resource, I should say, if they're going to enjoy it as much. Like, wow, I can't believe that turn took so long. Hard to say, right? So I do want to talk about assume command. Like I said, I the other thing I want to talk about tactics cards is I wonder if you should be able to play them at any time. Obviously, some of the cards will say play on a turn when you're not in battle, play on any player's turn. This can get confusing sometimes, even though it does clarify in the rule books. So during my regroup, I can play assume command, which seems crazy to me. I feel like potentially during regroups, maybe there should be a little bit more control on tactics cards, because I have played a lot of cards during regroups, and what ends up happening is that if I can uh, chain a bunch of stuff with my engine here, play assume command, potentially go up here, draw more cards, which I have done before. My turn can just go on for a while, and it's a very cool turn. Don't get me wrong, but it has that feels bad moment that I just was able to do a lot more than other players because I went to a spot. So some of the things I think players and myself were considering is that maybe it should say that the the space has to be empty, so a line space that is empty that you have to go to. Obviously, 2 raiders of different types can't go to the same spot. Like, but the S type here, these the strikers can. So I did have a game where a striker was in a base already, because you can't move the same one in there, and I placed a new one in there. So that is a thing. Anyhow, getting on about the sim command, I just find it very strong. So automation I have here because, and I know that the designers are looking at rewording this potentially. When I was talking to Peter, because this one's confused players. What this actually says is that spend energy that you already have. So what I like to do is I like to set this aside and say, hey, I can spend up to 5 energies as if they are ships, and then I'll put this in the discard pile. But some players are confusing this, and they think that it gives you 5 energy, which would be a very strong ability, which is not the case. Stealth maneuver, I don't think is overpowered. It's just a very good card. But going through the cards, the other thing is diplomacy cards are interesting. I wonder if there's a thought on potentially all the diplomacy cards being revealed at the same time. I do like that it's in turn order, but it seems weird that the diplomacy is like the active player is like starts the diplomacy and they could play a trap, and then the other person that would potentially play one doesn't get the opportunity to respond. But diplomacy cards are nice, and this is actually a perfect example that during diplomacies you can only play one action card, and that is very strategic and works out well. And potentially, I would like to see that expanded, maybe as a variant for where am I going with this? For your regroup turns, maybe you can only play up to 2 tactics cards or 3 tactics cards or some sort of limit, only so that it makes the turns faster, like it does with the diplomacy aspect. And the diplomacy, because some of the diplomacies you would love to play more than one of, but they're very powerful, so it makes sense. And I would just like to potentially see that as consideration to see how that would play test even. So that's my thoughts on the tactics cards. I enjoy a lot of them. I think it's a big part of the game, but I guess I should go on to these tracks here really quickly. I think all these tracks are fun to play with. My own biased view, as you're catching on, is that the Civ mod for me is very much the strongest, followed by what's it called again? The science. It'd be Civ mod, science, industry. Uh, then it would be commerce, and then supremacy. If I'm looking at tracks that. Oh, correction. It's that's not true at all. It's Civ mod, followed by science, followed by um, supremacy, then followed by commerce, then industry. Industry's the weakest one in my view, because the issue I have with it is that most games I'm only actually interested in getting like one upgrade. Maybe I want a second upgrade unless I'm playing the shipwrights. Um, which I'm going to want as many as I can get. But most of the time, I'm not as interested in this track. Nothing wrong with this track. It's that the other tracks just give you victory points. There's no other way to say about it. This track does not give you victory points inherently. It gives you, builds your engine in a different way. And there's nothing wrong with any of these tracks per se. I understand why the Supremacy track is higher. I do like the different options that you can get if you're the first player. Like this one's super cool. Love this one. Can't wait to see more of these. Obviously, I think this one's like the weakest, but gaining 4 resources is still strong. And these are all useful going up the Supremacy track. I think like as far as like trackability skills, the Volt is lagging behind quite a bit actually, and I think that's why one of the games that I've played, it's the track that people don't actively try to go up for numerous reasons. First of all, I already talked about developing spending credits feels challenging, but spending credits here to get commerce. And a lot of them will say, hey, it allows you to get, allows you to get, uh, spend an energy or place a unit here during your regroups to get credits is only okay. Like usually people want to grab, because it's connected with this, they're going to grab these usually over this unless they have a credit or two. And a lot of players tend to only go, if able, they try to make it to like the first vault level. Um, and then, but everything else, like when you look at it, there's a lot of blank space. So these all make sense. And then on here, this one makes sense because it's a very powerful track. Okay, nothing, nothing. Okay, this moves up the tracks. This gives you something that, not right. These all correlate, makes sense. And then these ones all make sense as well. But then from here, there's just nothing. You don't get anything. Like if you look at here, these two are tied in together because they're supposed to represent, hey, now you're getting double the points for each resource you have. The problem is that very it's not often that I found many players were trying to get this. It can be useful, don't get me wrong. Uh, if you have a bunch of resources, it can be super strong, and then you'll jump up on this track. But I find you're giving up a lot of other opportunities doing so because spending these credits, you could have gone other places and get more victory points. Neither here or there. I guess if my feedback here is that if there was availability, it would be nice to see one like additional thing on this track, just because people tend to avoid it. So it'd be nice, even though I'm not like a crazy fan. People do love upgrading their cards, especially since it gives them a free uh, a unit that they can potentially build for free if they don't have that already, type of thing, for like the other advanced non-transport units. Uh, but it's still the weakest for me because I'm really going up here to make the events go off, or maybe get an upgrade, but usually I already know the one or two that I want to grab. Um, and even though Supremacy is like a low track for me, I do like its ability. So nothing wrong with any of the tracks. I just highly value this because the end game victory points and drawing so many cards, super strong. Uh, Getting options here is very strong. Here, the abilities, if you're the first person, so basically, if you're in the lead, you want to continue to stay in the lead and start the battles. Other players will give up, which is fine. Here, you're going to just build because, like, maybe there's those planets, the brown planets on the board. It's only okay, I find. And here, I find in all my games, I think I've seen maybe like 5 or 6 players, maybe a little bit higher. Out of my dozen games, it's been less than 12 times that I've seen people up on like the vault track. So it's not every game. Like a lot of times people get up and they make it up to like here, which is fine, but they're not actively trying to push because the other ones help build their engines, and the commerce mods are not as interested because you're spending that precious credits. But anyhow, that's my thought process on that. Um, because I'm already getting long-winded, I think all these abilities are fine. Some of them are stronger than other ones. I really do like the options. I can nitpick on a few things, but no, overall, I really like what you're gonna get. And if you get like one weak one, that's perfectly fine because maybe you get one strong one here. It just means, okay, I'm not going to upgrade my heavy cruiser. So I really like these. I think that there's lots of fun different things. Getting into the moons. So I want to talk about the moons. Let me start off with the strong. No, let me start with the strong ones. The Nebula moons, just love them. Yeah, big fan. I think like I'm always trying to grab these if I can. Going into the Nebula just gives you so much advantage, and I like the variants. I know there's going to be more of them. I think that the ice moons, yeah, these can be very strong as well. And I've set this up in the way to show you like the different variants you can get, and I think there's going to be more moons coming, but because slotting these in are also useful. I think the ice moons are very nice. I'm always going to be happy, especially all the ones that give you like victory points. These are all nice moons. Um, uh, Funny enough, this I don't like going to the yellow planets or building spaceports, but boy, do I love. Even though it's just a single credit, I think these are super strong. It gives you that option, right? That wild card. So I really like these. Um, I think this. I rather this wasn't in the pile. I get that you want to have variants and stuff like that, but this it's funny that the spaceport, which is the only one outside of the red planets that has one of these, at least in the mod, right? So I would like to see this get replaced because even if it was just like an ice or a titanium, um, I would save it mostly for the reds. Nothing wrong with it. Just not looking forward to when that pops up. Uh, yeah, so speaking about the red planets, most of the red planet ones I'm not going to be a super fan of. There is engines that you can build that you're going to want to go to both sides or be able to um, use just an energy. So even though I say I'm not a big fan of these, like when you're building a, was it the commerce one, like you can build this mods here. So get 3 victory points. So spend an energy to get those 2 resources. Yeah, that's actually fairly nice. So there is use for it, but just not as big of a fan for the obelisk spots here. I think the factory ones has like, I think it has the most doubles, at least in this mod. It's great. Observatory, great. And you'll see that the other comment, and this is where the obelisk, like I think there's room, and maybe it's going to be in the other ones that they already showed. But if you see here, there's victory point ones in all the other plants you can go to, and there's no victory point moons that show up for at least in the mod. Um, but they do have the 2 cards. I think lots of energy options, and that's the theme for each one is on point. It makes sense that factories, titaniums, like each one of these do make sense. Don't get me wrong here, except hey, maybe the obelisk instead of costing like 4 different ones, maybe that one should cost like energy. Maybe it should. That would be an interesting thing, or I don't see a reason why it couldn't cost. Like I don't know what that would thematically represent. Um, so it'd be interesting to have something like that. But yeah, the moons are the weakest. I think this is pretty weak overall. But that's my assessment. Let me know what you think about the moons. Um, Event cards. I want to talk about the event cards only really quickly. I think they're all really nice. I think that the options are really cool. Um, it's interesting that they have specific raiders that they're associated with, and there's one that is that I like. Where is it? Something about ice showing up. Um, it doesn't matter, but yeah, I think these are all cool. I know there's going to be more event decks. I think there's like 3 event decks or something like that from the Game Found campaign. But yeah, I don't have too much outside that. Yeah, I've never seen anyone complain about the event outside of it not being the color that they needed because they're lowest on the track. The events seemed really cool. I've already talked about these ones. I talked about that. Player board all makes sense. I do like the flow. It's going to be on Game Tray, so like everything about this just seems awesome. I'm not gonna lie, that just seems great. Um, I don't know what's going on for this. I do hope that this is actually double-sided. So what I would like to see is this be double-sided, potentially having something on the opposite side would be cool. It doesn't need to be anything. It could just be artwork on the back. I just don't know what the back of these are supposed to look like. But since it has the space, maybe just some art on the back, or have it as an option for something like that. The mods here. So I want to go about over the mods. Some ones that are interesting, as you're probably already tracking it. They all have different like small little artwork on the bottom, like the middle bottom. You can see like all the art's slightly different. But starting off with the science mods here, what I want to talk about is that some of the mods are great. Anything with victory points are great. I have slight issue. I mean, these are 2 different ones because they have different art on it. I just have a slight issue with 2 mods that are the same outside of one is damage. So like the damage ones are normally supposed to represent like more from my understanding, this is my own understanding of it, supposed to represent like mods that are usually more powerful or they're like ancient technology that's been damaged. So this is nitpicky aspects, but it's just kind of odd to me to have like, if these 2 are here, which one do I want? Now that being said, if I was to take these 3 mods and place them out, obviously what is still cool, don't get me wrong, is that even though this one costs like it's a little bit less in the aspect that I can use one of any resource, I'm probably going to always want to grab this like any player would because I don't have to repair this. So, and like I don't have a problem uh, getting something when it's a victory point here. And the same idea that if this wasn't here and this one was in, I might want to do this. So that's cool. It just seems odd to have one that is damaged if it's like the exact same mod in all sense except for like art. Um, but they're still nice. I wanted to talk about the solar field in the aspect that I believe there's going to be like mods where like if you have this type of development build, you get this bonus. I really like this, and it's super fun. You'll see players like try to like burn this when they see that someone has a bunch of developments of that type. I really enjoy that mod. I think the science mods overall for building your engine, like super love that everything just like combos, like you just need one worker. Science mods, fairly happy overall with what you got here. Love the art, by the way. Industry mods, again, just some small ones here, like these two ones. Uh, one's not damaged. Again, this is nitpicking an aspect that it's because it's going to be a big pile, but if these two here, there's no reason why you wouldn't want to pick this over this one. I hope to also see more mods like this. I think this mod's is very fun, and love the idea that it's like a fairly powerful, so that's why it comes in damage. But at the same time, this is a proper cost item here, right? It's saying that you can go up on the track that you're already up on because you had to get this, and it's costing you the top level all so they might have tricked you, but what's really happening is that you're spending 2 titanium and an energy, so it's like as if you're doing this, but now you're allowed to buy any of these, um, but during your regroup turn. I love I'm actually a really big fan of this. If it's out, I'm gonna probably get it. I would like to see more of these. I think there's a few, or I might be crazy. Maybe there's because I've seen something in the Game Found campaign, but I really like that. Industry mods I think are fine. If I was rating mods, which I already showed, was it's like Civ mods. These are pretty equal. You want this to like help be able to place things out. And commerce, just because I'm not really going there. But there's a lot of victory points. Like if you just stare at the screen for a second, you'll see a lot of potential. If you place moons here, you're gonna get a lot of potential victory points. Um, this one here, these two I want to talk about though, in the aspect that this kind of feels bad. Yeah, sure you can trade in like an energy to gain the credit. You're probably already spending an energy to because you're probably not placing your worker on this one, but you're probably spending an energy. Then you gotta most likely spend something that you have lots of, usually energy or maybe a card that you can't use to get credit. I'd just rather get this one. And don't get me wrong, like it depends on the game setup. You're gonna take what you can get, but it just seems really weak. This one feels great. Love this one. Um, more examples of some stuff for the Civ mods. This one, not too big of a fan. I get that it's like, hey, it gives you. I almost wish it didn't come in damage, but it's nothing wrong with it. Like I would probably just go for this. But overall, the Civ mods, as I was saying, about half of them, if not over half, have victory points, end game victory points, and they're all really good. And the ones that don't have end game victory points, spend a resource to go up on the track. Oh, and it has it for one of each, or spend a card to go up on any of the tracks. Oh, these are great. I like pretty much almost every mod in the Civ mods. I'm like massive fan of. And the industry mods are. I forgot to show this really quick, but the industry mods are cool. I really do love the sharing of resources. Love like, hey, basically everyone gains something like everyone gets a repair, but you get 2 victory points. It's really cool as well. Uh, so almost reaching an hour here, so I've been long-winded talking. Uh, all of these are super fun. I really like the different raiders because raiders are going to raid. Their abilities are interesting. I find for feedback here, this gets confusing. It says per raider, but only one raider dies. I believe even if you only kill one raider, if there was like 3 raiders there, you get 3. If there were 3 strikers there, you would get 3 cards. That would have to be confirmed, but people confuse it for if you only killed one, you should only get one card. So just some clarification on here. The rest are pretty good. The abductors, however, also gets confusing. It's just a rule clarification aspect, and obviously I didn't place these in the right spots. Um, Rules clarification. There's people that believe that you should just keep your leaders. Like if you didn't win, you should keep whatever leaders were there on the card, because if it comes back into play, so just it would be good to have it in like a facts section to clarify or just update online type of thing. What happens? Do they actually get like discarded, or does it stay on the card in case this guy comes back out? So that was one last thing, I guess, is I did want to cover this. I mostly already covered it. Is that I do like the fact that there is there's a small chance, a 1 in 3 chance for each of the planets, that there's going to be a spot where it's cheaper for the most part. Like this one's cheaper, this one's more expensive. Oh, okay, sorry, not cheaper for the most part. Two of them are cheaper, two of them are more expensive, and then this one is the same. Which again, I wish that one of them was different in some sort of way, if that's all possible, because I like the fact that there's some variability with these. Since the supremacy is already harder to go all the way up on the track, it'd be nice to have some variable aspects about that. And that should also lead into my squirrel brain, that the ability would be cool if it was potentially gave you like a combat card, like a combat card, like search through the deck and get a combat card instead of getting that energy would be cool, like one of these red cards, and then like shuffle the deck type of thing, just to give it a little bit more flavor instead of just like straight energy. But it's still fine, don't get me wrong. What else do I have? I think my last feedback before I wrap it up is I slightly talked about it, but a player being able to, if they have a bunch of cards because they like went up here, a player being able to take a turn where they move this up like 1, 2, 3 because they played 3 like cards on the turn, is really strong. So potentially that's another limitation. Maybe a max of 2 yellow cards can be played on the turn, so that players know that you can't. Because I have had turns in like a 3-player game where it was already fully here, and then I went to like this track, moves up once, and then because I had bought cards, I drew a bunch of cards, and I moved it like 1, 2, 3, or I moved it like 2, and I went up 2 spots here. So like I have seen it where it was at the start and it's gone all the way there. So these are some of the reasons why I'm like nitpicking on the things. I absolutely still been having a blast, and it's been really nice. My last item for me for stuff, I guess, is that I found that the 56, the 50, 60, and 70, interesting enough, didn't really change much for my games. I think it can change for some players, but most of my games, if I found that if I was going to 50, I was already going to 60. The 70, so the real difference is like the 50 and the 70 for me, because those are usually the big difference. Just from my limited experience from the dozen or so games, 50 and 60 is usually easily hit because of like one event card. Usually players are already up on these and they're scoring like 10 to 12 points, most likely if certain ones pop up. So anyhow, that's my critiquing and feedback. Apologies, I went long-winded for those that stayed through it, but it's mostly again for Cardboard Alchemy uh, views and thoughts, and for other players to check out their Discord. And yeah, hopefully you didn't watch this expecting, or yeah, watch this. You're expecting like, hey, what's the thoughts on the game? I recommend checking out my other video. This was mostly just a feedback session going into depth of the stuff. So I've played this quite a few times, like I said, the dozen or so times. The solo mode I didn't cover, but I found the solo once. like a lot of solo games, once you understand how the AI works, it plays slightly different. I don't have any. Uh, I might do like just a written feedback for that, but overall, my thoughts on that is that yeah, it can really range. There's some questions I have. I'll provide that separately here. So yeah, that's all for now. Let me know what you think, what your feedbacks are for the game. Did I just really go into depth about things that didn't make sense, or did I talk a lot of good stuff? And do you find the rule books and the play rates useful that they show in here? I do find these actually fairly good. Yeah, I'll keep on rambling otherwise, so I'll let everyone go. So have a good day.